Good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome to today's webinar on the FERC Order 2023 and heat maps. I'm Danny Bouchard, founder and CEO of CartoVista, leader in web data visualization and mapping solutions. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by an amazing team of experts, both from the CartoVista and the transmission planning industry, who will share key insights and real-world applications of heat maps in the context of the latest FERC regulations. Joining us from CartoVista, please welcome Laura and Chloe. Good
Hi
afternoon,
there.
guys. How are you
Hi.
doing?
I'm
Good
great.
afternoon. We're doing
How are you?
great.
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a real
Excellent.
pleasure to have both of you on the webinar. Laura and Chloe, could you please take a minute to briefly introduce yourselves and the great work you're doing?
Sure. I'll go first. My name is Laura Spence, and I'm Director of Sales here at CartoVista, and I'm really excited to be here. I've had great conversations with both jurisdictional and non-jurisdictional folks who are probably here on the call today and beyond, and so I'm excited to dive into how heat maps are solving some of the challenges with FERC.
Thank you.
Great.
And yeah, I can go next. My name is Chloe Tomasi. I'm the GIS manager at CartoVista. So I work with all of our clients and users to make sure that they have the best of views of CartoVista. Yeah, I'm really thrilled for today's presentation. We're going to show, I hope, interesting aspects of FERC and heat maps. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Beautiful. We're also extremely fortunate to have with us Margaret Malloy from Southern Company, bringing a wealth of experience and perspective on today's topic. So Margaret, welcome aboard. How are you today?
I am great. I'm happy to be here to talk about our experience with developing this heat map in response to FERC Order 2023.
Beautiful. I'm sure our attendees are eager to also hear about your journey with such heat map and how you've navigated this new regulation. Well, let's dive right into our agenda to give everyone a good understanding of what to expect today. So we'll kick things off with an overview of CartoVista, highlighting our contribution to the energy market. Chloe will then introduce our platform and explain the concept and significance of heat maps. Laura will discuss the challenges presented by the FERC order on heat maps, setting the stage for a deeper dive into the topic. Margaret will share Southern Company's experience and achievements in implementing this heat map, offering practical insights and learning. Finally, we'll open the floor to a Q&A session. Feel free to send your questions via the Zoom chat throughout the presentation. We will address each question during the Q&A part. Of course, your participation is key to making this webinar a great experience, so don't hesitate to ask questions in the chat as we move along here. So first, what is CartoVista in one sentence? I'm often asked this question. I'd say we enable businesses and organizations to transform complex data into dynamic interactive maps and visualization that tell powerful stories. That's a pretty accurate description of what we do, I think. So as you'll see, we've also been doing this for quite a long time. We launched our new CartoVista offering, cloud offering last year, a new milestone that really marks an exciting new chapter for us. This SaaS platform brings sophisticated mapping and data viz capabilities to a wider audience, making it easier than ever before to access geographic information. Throughout the years, we've been working with and establishing long partnerships with leading companies in the energy generation and transmission sector. You recognize a few of the names, I'm sure, on this slide. Our portfolio includes impactful collaborations such as partnership with Midwest ISO, where we developed a real-time dashboard featuring a contour map for local marginal pricing, and of course, a point of interconnection analysis map. This map has been used to establish the basis of the FERC order heat map requirements. The second example on the right is Brookfield Renewable, where we are creating a comprehensive data wall project for their trading floor. It integrates live market information with pricing and weather data to facilitate informed trading decisions. CartoVista Cloud is all about bringing web mapping to life, making it super easy for users to turn their data into captivating map stories. But it's not just about maps. It's about creating an intuitive experience, sophisticated visualization and presentation that really make your data shine. So Chloe will help us dive into what makes our platform stand out. So over to you, Chloe, for the next part when you're ready.
Thank you, Danny, for this introduction. So yeah, I'll start to share my screen. There we go. yeah, together we'll look at what CartoVista is. So we'll look at a hands-on example with how to integrate your points of interconnection data in CartoVista Cloud and how you can visualize the data in the platform. And then we'll switch to how to build a heat map. So we'll see how we can switch from a set of POIs to a heat map, and also how we can integrate that into the platform as well. All right, so I'll jump straight into the platform. So I'll switch to my web browser. There it is. So there you go. This is the CartoVista platform. So it shows here all the maps that have been published in this workspace. This is the map gallery, and all those maps have been created using datasets. So I can also show you the data gallery that you can see here with an overview of all the datasets that have been uploaded to this platform. And what we'll do together today is we'll upload a new dataset, and it will be, of course, a point of interconnection dataset. So there it is. There it is. This is the data set that we'll be working with. So it's a very simple Excel file. Every POI has a name, an identifier, a type, a capacity in megawatt, and of course coordinates to place the points on the map. So to integrate this Excel file into the platform, I just simply need to drag and drop the file right here. So I'll do that right now. I'll take the file in my file directory and drag and drop it here. So now it's being uploaded to the platform, and I have a few dialogues to help me integrate the data. So here, for instance, I can rename the data set. So I can say this is my POI data. And if I go next, I have a few additional options for every of the columns. So for instance, I can rename the columns. There we go. And I can go save to go to the next step, which is the geocoding step. So CartoVista has detected that I have coordinates in my file. I have latitude and longitude information for every of the POI. So I can use those information to transform the Excel file into a point layer that then I can use in a map. And that's called geocoding. So I'll do that by just clicking on the geocode button. And there we go. We have the process that's showing up in the notification here. And as you can see, the POI data is ready. The dataset has been uploaded and it's ready to be used to create a map and start visualizing the POI data. So that's easy as it gets to integrate data and start working with it. So I've actually already prepared a map with this data. So I'll switch back to the map gallery and I'll open this points of interconnection map. So as you'll see in a second, in this map, we have different views on the data. The first one shows the POI type. So we have different types of POI and we show it by color. And we have another view about POI capacity that really shows the megawatt capacity for every of the POIs. So this is the map. You have the map at the center, and then you have a few additional panels around this map. So as you can see, everything is really interactive, and I can play with any element of the map. So for instance, here it's the legend that shows what we have on the map. So we can see, as I was saying, we have the different types using different colors. And as I roll over any item of the legend, it highlights the points on the map. And as you can see, it also highlights them in the chart and in the table below. So all of those elements in the map are really interconnected and interactive together. So in the table below, for instance, I can also filter the data. So the table is similar to what you would have in an Excel file. So I can click on the type column to filter by type. So if I want to only show the bus items, for instance, I can filter. And as you can see, the map has been filtered, the legend and the chart as well. And to clear the filters, I just click here on this little icon. There we go. And the map, as you saw, is also interactive. So I can, of course, navigate easily in the map. And I can also roll over any of the POIs to get additional information on this POI, such as its name, identifier, the type, and also the capacity in megawatt. So we'll now look actually at this capacity in megawatt. So for that, I'll just switch to the next view, the next slide, which shows my POI capacity. So there you go. You see that the colors have changed. Now the color is showing a capacity in megawatt with a gradient from a dark green with higher capacities to a dark red with lower capacity. And as you can see, we are also using size to differentiate the POIs. So the bigger ones are the ones with higher capacities, and the smaller ones are the one with lower capacity. So you can see how you can you combine different ways of representing the data to make sure that the map really conveys the message that you want to convey, and that you can properly analyze the data and analyze the grid. So here we start to see the areas where we have lower and higher capacities, but another way of really looking at that is through heat maps. So now we'll switch to the next part of my presentation, which is actually about heat maps. So we'll first look at, what is a heat map and how to build it. So I'll switch back to my presentation to show you this. All right. So what's a heat map? Heat map shows grid capacity continuously. So we switch from a set of points to a continuous view of capacity's value. And how do we do that? We do that using interpolation. So interpolation, it's a mathematical method used to estimate the values between points. So what we do is that we're going to estimate the capacity values in between the known POIs. And we do that to understand at a glance the grid capacity. So we see at a glance the areas where we have lower capacity, the areas where we have higher capacities. And this is to help you plan more effectively for new POIs, new projects, and so on. So let's take a closer look at how this interpolation method is really done and how it works. So I'll switch to the next slide. So there are different ways to interpolate data, different methods, and the one that we use is called inverse distance weighting. So with this method, interpolated values are calculated based on the surrounding POIs, where close POIs have a higher impact on the estimated value. So we'll look at an example to really understand how that works. So here, for instance, we have a few known POIs or points with given values. So here we have 9, 10, 10, and 12. And around those POIs, we have created a matrix. And for every cell of that matrix, we're going to estimate the value. So if we look at this one cell in purple here, for instance, we're going to use the surrounding POIs in a given radius to estimate the values. And we're going to look actually at the distance between this cell and the surrounding POIs. And the POI that is the closer, so in this case, this one is going to have a higher impact. So that means the value of the cell in purple is going to be closer to 12. So if I look at the result in the next slide, you can see the estimated values has been estimated at 11.4. And this method has been replicated for every cell of the matrix that we had. So this is how we get this gradient from, the reds closer to 12 and the greens closer to 9. So this is really the concept, the idea behind interpolation and behind heat maps. And just so you know, this method uses parameters. So we have the radius of the POI influence. We also have the power that increases this influence, and also the smoothing. So those parameters are really here to adjust, to adapt this method to your data set to make sure that the results that we get are coherent. All right, so this is the theory. We'll switch back to our example to look at actual results. So this is my example. And now if I switch again to the next slide, this time I have the heat map. So this is the result of the interpolation of the dataset that we just saw. So as I was saying, this is now I get a continuous view of the megawatt values. So for every area where I'll place my cursor, I have an estimated value, an estimated megawatt value. So everything is also very interactive. So I can also play with the legend. So if I place my cursor here in a range of megawatt values, it will highlight the cells on the map, the location on the map where we have this value. And just so you know, you really understand, I can also show the POIs. I had hidden them by default, but I can show them again. So you can really see that the values of the POI really matches the value of the heat map. And where we don't have any POIs, like here, for instance, you can really see the gradient of values, and this is really the interpolation. And yeah, so we also have additional tools to help you analyze this heat map. So for instance, we have the profile tool. So you can use this tool to just draw a line on your territory, and you will get the megawatt values along this line. So for instance, if you have transmission line, if you want to see the values along this line, then you can use this line to draw the profile. And yeah, just so you know, also transmission lines, their megawatt values can also be used as an input to actually create the heat map. So it's not only POIs, it can be, we can have various inputs to create the heat map. So I hope that this presentation has helped you understand a little bit more what you can do with CartoVista, with an online interactive mapping, how it can help you start to visualize and understand and analyze your POI data. And yeah, I think that Danny, you have a few words to say about CartoVista before we
Yes,
other
absolutely.
topic.
So thanks for the great presentation. You made this pretty visual, so great explanation on the heat maps. So let's do a quick summary of what we just saw. I guess that's a key piece here, a key takeaway. As you've seen, CartoVista is an intuitive experience. You don't need to be a GIS expert to use it. It's really open to transmission planners or anybody really. You can work as a team as well and set up permissions. Chloe really hasn't shown that, but you can set up access with your own stakeholders. So you can say this department can only see this or that. So that's also a possibility with the platform. The software can be deployed in the cloud or on-prem and is pretty simple to set up. More importantly, and that's the last point, is CartoVista is fully customizable. We have a REST API and a software development kit to develop custom apps. And this is very useful in the context of public-facing maps. And we'll hear more about this, and we'll put this in context with the FERC Order specifics and its challenges now with Laura that will present us, the FERC Order specifics. So there you go, Laura. Your turn to shine.
Thanks, Danny. I know most of you are very familiar with FERC Order 2023, or you wouldn't be here, so I'll cut to the chase with sort of the three main parameters as it relates to point of interconnection heat maps. So the first requirement is the need to maintain a public-facing interconnection heat map. The second is that there must be a way to enable user to perform interconnection analysis by inputting megawatt amounts and voltages. And third, which I noticed there was a question we'll get to at the end, but providing a table of results to show the estimated impact. So that's the gist of it. And we'll dive kind of more deeply into the challenges that come with that as it relates to heat maps. So FERC Order 2023 is going to require transmission providers to deploy heat maps within 30 days of each cluster study and restudy, which really is not a lot of time to be able to do that. So transmission planning teams are really kind of facing tight timelines and more pressure to be able to get this out the door. And that is going to require some optimization of planning processes to meet the deadlines. So the next thing is that there's definitely an urgency to meet compliance, which can limit resources for creating heat maps from scratch or doing that in-house. And so you have to find efficient solutions to do that. So next is the advanced functionality requirements. So the ability to display points of interconnection and the megawatt inputs and be able to visualize those results into a table and a map is quite a bit, especially when you're looking at large point of interconnection and transfer study analysis data in real time. So we noticed in Chloe's presentation, she was able to kind of do that for us now, but being able to kind of pull that all together into a heat map does definitely require some advanced functionality, as we're probably going to hear from Margaret as well. And next is the piece on accessible public maps. So that comes with some challenges with being able to allow users to anonymously use the platform without requiring login credentials. And that's going to basically require collaboration with IT departments so that the maps deployment aligns with the company's web guidelines and security policies, of course. And that it integrates also with corporate identity and branding. So that's the public piece. And the last challenge is really emphasizing ease of use. So ensuring that the streamlining of processes for inputting the request and interpreting the results is essential to the functionality, making sure that that's simple for users on both the internal and external sides of things. For stakeholders internally, it's important that it's easy to update data and manage the data. And for people using it externally, it needs to be intuitive and you're able to easily use it. And so one way we've addressed this, and we'll see in the example coming up, but we've deployed a user onboarding process, and that's just a pretty simple example, but ideally it just guides the user step by step through the platform so there's no questions and you don't have people falling off. And so that summarizes the challenges. And now I'd like to welcome Margaret Malloy. And Margaret is the transmission planning supervisor at Southern Company. And we've had the pleasure of working with her on this site tool that she's about to discuss. Over to you, Margaret.
All right. Well, so I think most of y'all are probably familiar with what has happened here, but as she said, I am a supervisor over the transmission planning support group and responsible for our technology and building base cases, and then also was asked to complete this task of going about getting an interactive heat map set up. And so I've been with Southern Company about 29 years, but involved with this new role with the support for transmission planning for almost 2 years. And that's my background. You can go, there we go. And so about 2 years ago, when we had some things change around here and I took this new position, I came in, and many of you may be familiar with my manager, Daryl McGee, but we knew that the FERC Order 2023 was likely. And we also had, even in-house, there are so many stakeholders within Southern Company that wanted the ability to be able to visually have a way to just look and see where might there be interconnection capability across the Southern Company footprint. And we get so many requests, even internally as well as externally, with interconnection, that we needed a way to do this. And we started investigating this, and we knew about the tool that CartoVista had developed with MISO, and we knew these requirements were coming. So we started this project to go ahead and have a tool developed. And we wanted it to be easy and to allow people, to have some better decision-making tools. And we thought that even without the FERC order, it would help us to cut down on requests that we were getting, where folks, would continue to request to connect in an area that was already congested, and the study results weren't going to be very good for them. And so we thought this tool would help with this as well. You can go to the next slide. And just as we went on our look to see who could do this, we knew about the MISO tool, but we did our due diligence and talked to several different companies to see what their capabilities might be to partner with us to create this heat map application. And then we ended up having several calls with Danny and his staff and looked at what they had to offer us, and it was just very easy to use their tools is what we saw repeatedly. And the more, we talked with them, we decided, to go ahead and enter into a partnership with them to get this tool developed and develop the specifications for it, and did these design review sessions with each other. And then we're going to show you what this tool looks like. Okay, so, and we're not quite ready to release it yet. We're still working on some things, but we're getting close, and hopefully at the end of second quarter, we'll be able to release this. But it's got two components to it. It's got the interconnection, or the POI analysis map. And then we also wanted to be able to show this queue map of activity. And so we worked with Danny and his staff to get both of these two tools developed. And it is a web-based application, will be able to be accessed, from anyone. It doesn't require a login. I know that's probably controversial to some people's companies. That kind of through our department here that deals with tech is the TO, or technology organization. I think they had a lot of questions about that, but that is what's in the FERC order. So that's what we have developed, what we're going to have here. Danny, anything else you want to mention about it?
Yeah, maybe just a word that everything is based, the two custom apps that we will soon see are based on the platform using our REST API and the software development kit. Just a note there. So let's start with the first map, Margaret. So maybe I can start to show it off here. So everything starts with a disclaimer, of course. So we always have to accept. So there's also the onboarding that in this case we will just skip. So you're welcome to take the onboarding. For people that don't know how to use the map, it could be an interesting way to start. So there you go, Margaret. You can explain the rest, of course.
Yeah, it might be good to explain what we were going about here. We knew in the other tool that we had seen that really just had 1 year's worth of data in it. And so what we were trying to accomplish here, thinking about how we might use it, when we run cases, we usually analyze 10 years worth of data. And so what we thought would be useful here would be to have the ability to have different scenarios, because you may have multiple data sets in the tool at any given time, and then allow the users to be able to pick a year that they want to look at. And so, and this is where the complexity of how much data it is starts to compound itself pretty quickly. But you're able to pick a scenario, you're able to pick a year within that scenario. And then the other thing that we thought would be really good is, and y'all may see this as well, a lot of times if you are a solar developer, and you can just play it, Danny, and you're wanting to connect on the 115 system, that can be really tough to do, just because that underlying backbone, which is the 115 system, can be quite loaded, especially in the early years. And we wanted people to be able to see the dynamics of how is our system changing over time. And then if you're a solar developer and you might want to look at different voltage levels to connect, we wanted them to be able to assess that too. And we know, it's more expensive to do an interconnection at a higher voltage usually, but at the same time, if you're connecting at a lower voltage, may be more expensive because of the amount of transmission line work that needs to be done in terms of overloaded facilities to interconnect. And so we wanted this tool to be able to allow them to see, some different aspects about how the system is changing over time, and then how connecting at different voltage levels, could impact your potential interconnection in terms of how many overloads a developer might see. And then the other thing, and I think you'll see this, but as he starts to get closer into the map, you start to see these points of interconnection to show up. And it's got all kinds of different ways to search, which is really handy when we work with them, to figure out how we wanted this to work and how it would be more useful to people. The other, I guess, another aspect of it is the FERC order says really at a substation bus, but we know from our experience that most of the times these solar developers want to connect usually somewhere along a transmission line. And so we spent a good deal of time establishing midpoints on the different transmission lines. Another thing about our model and just the data on our base cases, usually you don't necessarily have the lat and long data for every single POI on your system. Y'all may, different people may, but we had it on some of our points and not on others. And so we've spent a good deal of time establishing the lat long coordinates for each one of these substation buses, and then also establishing coordinates for midpoints on the transmission lines, just because we know a lot of times, it's going to be a quite different answer if you're going to connect in the midpoint of a transmission line versus on a substation bus.
Yeah, we can actually see on the map right now, the midpoints are actually shown with squares and the interconnections are shown with triangles. So you could quickly figure out which one is which by just looking at the map.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
searching, of course, is the other thing. In this case, we're searching for keywords, and it both searches, in this case, the counties as well as the POI. But you can also put in whatever place name you want. In this case, let's say Lafayette, which is a city or a town, I should say, I guess, in Alabama. You know more than me, Margaret. So you can navigate to pretty much a postal code, geographic coordinates, latitude, longitude, which is very useful because if you have an area of interest in mind, you could do that.
Yeah, we wanted this to be easy to use, and I feel like, Danny, what you're displaying here is especially, we're familiar with our own facilities, but other folks, that are going to come use the tool would not necessarily be. And we wanted to have different ways for those users to be able to find the points that they were looking for.
Yeah. I think next we're going into making a megawatt input request, and maybe I'll let you explain how that works. I think we're gonna be trying it on that POI that we see right here. So there we go.
Yeah. So that is another part of this overall project, is for them to be able to pick a point and be able to interject some megawatts and then be able to get the table of results. And a really nice thing about this table that we've added is it will also show you, I think in the version we have now, it'll also show you like the year and the scenario that you're on. And you can continue to append to this table and get these results. And then you can export them to Excel and be able to, have that when you walk away from this session. And then, of course, he has a way, if you just want to start over completely, you can clear out all the data and start over. But we meet the different requirements from the FERC order that, shows them, what the loading looked like before they started, what the megawatt impact is. And then the heat map is updating the colors to show whether things were, overloaded. And he also has these tags, and you see that little red balloon right there. And if it's not overloaded with your injection, I think that flag is blue. And then if it is, it's red. And then he's also got a way over there on the capacity, where it says capacity, he's got a way where you can show the heat map either prior to the analysis or after the analysis. And then he's also got a way, if you want to see, we asked him, we said, well, what if you could just lay the queue over all of this that you're doing? And so there's a way to overlay the queue map even on top of this. We kept thinking of things that might make it a little bit more useful to folks, both internal to Southern Company and external. And so we just kept working with Danny and his team to identify, some different things that would make it more useful for folks as they're going to come and use this new tool.
Yeah. And something that Laura mentioned as well is onboarding. We've also implemented onboarding. I think that is shown in here, which really takes the user through the steps, because some people may not know how to work with such a web application, and they may be intimidated. They're not quite sure what to do. So this really takes the user step by step. You kind of need to go through all the different steps, and it really is taking you by the hand. We think that this will facilitate the use of the app. Of course, we'll find out more when it's live, when it's released to the public. But so far, the feedback has been that it's been more user friendly than what we've done previously. So great. So let's take a look at the second map, which is similar, but I guess simpler in a way. So this shows the current queue activity. So I'll let you explain this one, Margaret, as well.
So as many of you have probably as well, we have quite an extensive queue, and we wanted to be able to have a way to display it by the fuel type, or what type of a generator interconnection it is. And then you're also able, he's got just all kinds of things where you can pick a particular type of interconnection. And then you've got the project information when you window in. And you've also got a way over on the left-hand side. There's just lots of different ways here. You can just change, how you want it displayed. This is by operating company. And they've got the way to show it by amount. Just lots of different features here, that folks can come in and use it, whether it's an ERIS or NRIS, and then a way to show the magnitude of the megawatts that are being interconnected or potentially interconnected, and lots of ways to search again. and get a lot of information about who's in the queue currently. And so this is what this part of the map does. It shows all of that information.
Yeah, it's a much simpler map, of course, but it's all about communicating that information clearly and also giving options to output the map. Like right now, there's also the ability to export the map with the layout window. So all of those things, I think, are helping creating a better experience out there for users that want to access the information. So let's maybe a few words about the impact. And before I jump to the next slide, that will make you laugh with the photo that we have of your colleague right there. Of course, you remember that one, but maybe you have a few things to say about the impact before we move on.
Well, we're just hoping that it helps the customers that want to connect to the Southern Company system, that it will help them get a little more insight, into what is going on the Southern Company footprint and help them to make some more informed decisions. At least that's what we hope it will do. It does not by any means. Yes, this is one of the my team members, Drew, and he's been very excited about this. My team has been very pleased with what we have been able to accomplish here. But yeah, we're just hoping that it will have a positive impact and that it will help people. But it doesn't replace, the transmission planning analysis. At the end of the day, it is what we call an N-1 analysis. It's not a full transmission study, but it does give a very good indication of where there might be challenges on an interconnection on the Southern Company system. And so we're hoping that it will help people. That is the goal.
Beautiful. Thank you. That was a great summary. So let's get to the Q&A and panel discussion. So to start it off, I think the audience are starting to ask some questions, but before we go there, Laura and I had a few questions for you, Margaret. So in your view, which aspect of the FERC Order heat map presents the most significant challenge for transmission providers out there, and how do you suggest they approach it?
So being able to get the data together that's needed to do this, I think Danny and CartoVista, they have some great tools, but being able to get your data into the format and get it loaded into the tool is probably been the most challenging thing for us. Developing a clean POI list, and then also we use a must is what we're using to do the analysis here, and then the results that come out of that and getting it into a good format so it can be easily loaded. That's a bit of a challenge. I think we're going to keep refining that process, but definitely that's probably been one of the hardest part. We deciding what we wanted to do. We worked with y'all to do that, and we had a good example to look at. But then past that, developing a clean set of POIs and then being able to get the data needed in a good format so that's easily loaded, and really making sure that the data is clean and not having flaws in the data. You will have to develop an internal, QA process to make sure that what you're loading into the tool is good data and you're not have holes in your data.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I have a question. You had mentioned when it comes to kind of the importance or the value of heat maps, you had touched on that you guys needed a quick way to be able to visualize everything and, quickly get answers. What were you using before that? What was the process like beforehand? What tools did you use?
So we have a way to get, obviously information in a summary format, but it usually comes out the way that we do it. It comes out in Excel reports. Mm-hmm. And we're familiar enough with our system that we can quickly scan through those reports and see if the data looks valid to us. But there's really not a good way to visually do that. And so this tool takes results and marries them up with visualization.
Thanks.
Great answer. Maybe another one. Could you outline the primary challenges that Southern Company faced during this project and why you've decided to work with us?
So just trying to, well, one thing, and it wasn't terrible, but trying to decide, what the specifications would be for this, and what we wanted it to do. That took us a little while. Even before we got with y'all, Danny, we were nailing down and writing several different iterations of what we wanted it to do and how we wanted it to work. And then the other thing is, just because our model doesn't require us to have lat and long information, that's kept separately in another organization. And so it took us quite a while to match up, even though the data was there, matching the data into the PSSE model in our database where we keep all of the base case information for Southern Company. That was quite a lift. And then we really, midpoints of transmission lines, that really wasn't required by FERC. So we put that on ourselves because we wanted it to be able to have those midpoints. And so that was all pretty time consuming. And it's taken us a while to go through all of that. I was very glad that we did start, sooner than later. Obviously now, I guess folks can build on what we've done, but it will take you some time. And if you don't have all of those data sets together in one location, it may take you some time to pull all that together from your GIS group with your transmission planning model.
Yeah, great point. And also, when we were demonstrating the site tool, there was the ability to do the year and the scenario. That's pretty innovative. Can you just speak on that decision a little bit?
Yes, we had seen MISO had a really good starting tool that we liked, but we knew that it really didn't show how the system was changing over time, and it only had one scenario in there. And so, especially with these new cluster study processes, you're going to have to be publishing things, it looked like, pretty frequently. None of us knows exactly how that's going to all be working just yet. But we thought, we've got base cases that we release, and that is the information that at least twice a year we'll have new base cases. And you usually want to compare from one base case to the next to see what's changing. And then you're going to have these cluster studies going on. And so when we were thinking about all of that, we were like, well, we really want the way to have more than one scenario in the tool. And because our system is getting so much improvements made over time, we wanted the ability for people to see that. You might pick to try to interconnect something in year 26, but by the time you get out to, let's say, year 2032, the system may look much different. And so we wanted people to be able to see that.
That's
Awesome.
great. Maybe another aspect, which aspect of the project did you find the most rewarding? And were there any parts you found less enjoyable or particularly challenging?
I will say that I have a young person on my team who's a co-op student, and he has very much enjoyed learning about how to deal with big sets of data. And he's really been great. What he did not like was when I had him I'll call it hand searching up lat longs on a particular transmission line structure. If it had anything to do with pulling in big data sets and doing QA and writing Python scripts, and he found a way to use a tool that Microsoft has called a data wrangler, anything like that, he loved. But when it came down to just having to looking at individual transmission line structures and go pull lat long information, I would say my team thought that was pretty boring and pretty dry.
Good point. Yeah. All right. Maybe one last question before we move on to questions from our audience. What key piece of advice would you offer to other transmission providers striving for timely compliance with FERC Order?
I think that getting started now and trying to pull your lat long data together with your transmission base case information, if you can start doing that now, I think that, I wouldn't wait, because that's really the first step. Is you're going to need a good set of POI data. And so if you can start there, most everybody does transfer analysis. And I think you can get where you need to go, but I wouldn't necessarily wait. I would start now.
Great. Talking about waiting, we have a great question from the audience there. And it's also a question that was in my list. When will SOCO deploy the heat map? And the second part is, will the heat map be deployed ahead of the first annual cluster window or after the first annual cluster study is complete?
So we're going to try to deploy, this will be for our base cases. We're going to try to deploy by the end of next quarter, second quarter. So that would be June. Just thinking, but yeah, I mean, so it's not required. That's an internal goal, but yeah, that's what we're trying to go for. And I'm not as involved on the policy side about the cluster studies and when the first cluster has to be, in the map and available. But I will say we'll have at least the base cases, maybe one or two sets of data in there for base cases ahead of when the first cluster study will get done.
Great answer. So one more question from the audience. Let me just go back up because it switched on me. Instead of interpolation, can we provide transmission line that allow electrical distance better? The answer is yes, absolutely. It's possible to also create all sorts of data visualization with your transmission lines. It could be without interpolation or with interpolation. Both models are working, so there's all sorts of possibilities. In the case of Southern Company, we didn't quite have the time to go there, but it is, I think, of interest, and maybe you can speak about that, Margaret. That could be a step 2 in a project potentially, I think, right?
Yeah, we might have some extensions based on what we learn about the tool and how, this is working for us. We may, decide to do some different things later. We want to get the tool up and running and make sure that we can successfully get our data sets ready and loaded easily and learn as much as we can and streamline that process. And then once we've done that, we'll look at what we want to do next. Yeah.
There's also, I guess, a question from the audience on the challenges to allow the map to meet the requirements of the FERC order, as well as the CII requirements. And maybe you can talk about that, Margaret. I don't think we have integrated like the transmission line information with this release, but that's one area of discussion that we had.
Yeah. So to keep us from violating CII privileged information, we don't display the lat and longs. I mean, you will see a location of where something is. And I mean, if any of you know, you can drive up to a substation and see where it is. And the name of the substation is on the fence. And there's lots of publicly available, tools and data sets where you can probably get all kinds of information that we would probably consider to be CII, but we don't display the transmission line routes. We don't have the substation or the transmission line coordinates. We had to supply it to the tool to be able to make the visual representation on the map, but it is not visible for any user to see that information. We've chosen to do this as an on-prem type project. Southern Company wanted to keep the data in-house and deploy it on their own servers and that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, we're doing what is required, but we're trying to not give away any CII information.
Great question. Great answer. There was a question as well on how do we display a table of record, following a megawatt input with millions of rows, similar to MISO. By the way, there's over 18, I think close to 19 million transfer analysis data points in the app. The way we do it, we leverage a database in the back end, and there's an awful lot of logic we're doing to generate those heat maps on the fly. So lots of options there that we have worked. And this is really a custom map that we've built with Southern Company. Even the calculations, everything has been done hand in hand with the engineering team at Southern Company. Make sure that we have the proper results and we're displaying it properly. Maybe another really good question, if 2 points are in the same coordinates with different capacity value, what would the heat map look like? And how the interpolation works? Maybe a question for Chloe, but I believe it would take the average of both values. So if you've got 50 and 100, it would end up being 75.
Yeah, exactly. So like all the points that are in the same area, they will have the same impact on the surrounding area in the heat map. So yeah, it will do a mean of the values that are in the same location.
Yeah. I guess that ties in to another question. How does the heat map cope with multiple transmission lines in a single row with different level of capacity? So of course, depending on, you've got the ability to switch as well your kV levels and all those things. So there are, there is quite a bit of flexibility to really adjust the heat map to what you need. So in this case, I think the heat map would probably display the data properly.
Yeah, and they're always going to get the table results based on the POI that they select. So
correct.
I do understand what they're asking, but you have to pick a certain point and get the data that's associated with that point from the table.
Yeah. Great. Another question, will the recording of this meeting be available? Yes, we will make the recording available for sure. We will send it along after the meeting so you guys can watch it over again. Another question, can the data and results of a given analysis be exported for use in other GIS software? The answer technically is yes, but in the case of Southern Company, as we have decided, we didn't want to implement that functionality, but it is possible with our software to export to within your GIS, whether you use Esri or whatever software you're using. Another question, what is the difference between CartoVista application maps and map used by Southern Company GIS departments? I guess there's two parts. There's our platform, which is the standard CartoVista out of the box that Chloe actually demonstrated as her introduction. This is the out of the box solution that helps you drag and drop data and is a free form, essentially, platform. But there's also, of course, the custom maps that we have built that are specifically for FERC requirements with Southern Company, the two custom maps that we've built. So the user experience is a little different. We've removed a lot of things from the public maps, of course, because we wanted the experience to be simpler and straight to the points. Like, it doesn't have the tools to drag and drop data. It's really focusing only on the FERC order. Try to see what other questions we have left. Is there a tutorial or documentation that we can follow to create a similar SOCO dashboard? Yes and no. We have some of this, but it's a custom experience that we built. So it requires the software development kit, and there is some documentation, but I wouldn't say it's the best in the world yet. We're still working on this.
However, in the standard platform, we do have tutorials and onboardings to help you, use the standard platform, but not for the SOCO dashboard yet.
Yeah, and we also have, of course, really well documented REST API. Maybe some other questions here, and I realize it's only the top of the hour soon. So how many POIs and transfer analysis study data is currently used in the site application? Maybe you can answer this one, Margaret.
We have about 3,000 POIs right now. We would like to add some more. Just a matter of, my team is also trying to get out Southern Company's first set of base cases for the year. So we're kind of under the gun right now, but we're going to get back on adding some more POIs as soon as we can.
Great. Another question, can I embed a map I create on our company website? Absolutely. A map you create on a platform can be embedded using either an iframe, or there's several ways it can actually be embedded on your website. Of course, the map and the data has to be public, but if that's the case, then embedding it on the website is pretty simple. Another one, and this looks like the two last questions. Can CartoVista help us setting up the calculations from our data when users are making megawatt input requests? Yes, we have professional services, and usually what we like to do is sit down with your engineering team to make sure that we take the time to build this in collaboration with your team and set up the calculation. Depending on what you're using, what software you're using, there could be differences. If you are using years, scenarios, there's something similar than what Southern Company is doing that will make a difference. And maybe the last question, is there a chance to add lower voltage level, 69 kV or below? Maybe you can take this one, Margaret.
We did not want to do that. We have separate group that does sub-transmission, but I think you can, as long as you have the must transfer and you define the, the points with that KV level, then absolutely, you could add whatever you wanted to.
Yeah.
Because you may have a system that may have, like, we don't have 345, or I don't know. There's different, different places around the country have different voltage levels. But I think as long as you've got the data, they can implement it for you.
Yeah. Great.
I think it was a first question that we missed, Danny. There was, did I understand correctly that the SOCO map will show the actual transmission lines and station by that long? And is there a layer that isolates and shows all the lines and stations on the map? Which I think we've probably answered along the way, but maybe we can clarify that again.
They're visually on the map, but you will not get lat longs, and it is displayed as like the rectangles are a midpoint of a transmission line, but we will not have transmission line routes on this map, and we will not have any coordinates available. There's folks that can get around that and figure things out, but we just did not feel like we wanted to do that.
Yeah. Well, this is great. So maybe a few last slides. We've compiled a comprehensive suite of resources as well on the FERC Order from our website. So among this, you'll find a readiness guide, a practical tool to help you assess your current status and understand the steps ahead. And of course, we're here to assist further, so feel free to book a meeting with us at your convenience. For your ease, as I mentioned, we'll be distributing this presentation both in Adobe PDF as well as the recording, so you will have access as well to all the links. I want to thank you all for joining us today on the webinar. A special shout out to Margaret for sharing her insight and experience. It was great. It has significantly enriched the discussions. My thanks also go to Chloe and Laura for their informative presentations. To our attendees, your questions and proactive participation were truly appreciated. Remember, our team is here to support you, so don't hesitate to reach out for more information. We will be sending out this presentation as well as additional resources shortly. So again, thank you, ladies. A big thank you for everyone for participating and making this a success. And until next time, have a great day, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you, Margaret.